Misfits, people ask me all the time about tools that I use in my life and business to maximize my success. I usually start by telling them one of my most powerful tools is my morning habits. And of course, they look at me somewhat confused. I then explain how important it is for me to center myself and how I begin my day and plan for my success. It's critical to consistent high performance. And it doesn't take me long, about 5 or 10 minutes, because I use a great resource called the 5-Minute Journal. The 5-Minute Journal is the simplest, most effective way I've ever found to start your day in the right mindset, doing the right things, and set yourself up for success. And it is exactly what it says, a 5-minute exercise you can do each day. Let me ask you, if you could reach your next level in your life and business by spending just 5 minutes of focused time a day, would you do it? I bet you would. And I know it works because I've experienced the power of it. And you can get your 5-minute journal simply by going to www.misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. Do what I do. Use this amazing resource to give yourself an edge in your performance and your success. Get your 5-minute journal today.
Misfit entrepreneurs, I want to tell you about an amazing resource that will have tremendous impact on your business and your revenue. I have used this solution in multiple businesses and it has made an incredible difference. Let me start by asking you something. Do you know how much it costs your business when just one salesperson doesn't step up to deliver? Do you really know? The cost can easily exceed 6 figures for just one bad hire, not just from the time, effort, and resources in hiring them, but from the lost business and downtime as well, as you have to go find a new salesperson and everything surrounding that. And the last thing any growing business can afford is to have a failed hire, especially in sales, the revenue driver for the company. But what if there was a way to know someone checked all the boxes of a great sales hunter and closer before you ever hired them? That's the solution that I found from a company called Sales Drive. They have created a solution called Drive Test. It's a powerful hiring tool that separates high-performance salespeople from pretenders by measuring the most critical personality trait needed for success in sales: drive. Drive is composed of 3 non-teachable traits shared by all top producers: the need for achievement, competitiveness, and optimism. And knowing who has drive before the interview dramatically increases your chances of selecting salespeople who will produce for you while avoiding those costly bad hires. I've used the solution and it works. In fact, it works so well, I've referred them to every company that I work with. And they've created a very special offer so that you can try them for free as well. You can get a free drive test assessment today at www.misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive, all one word. Start using the drive test in your hiring and never hire a bad salesperson again.
Hello, Misfit Nation. Welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur. Before I jump in, if you are new to watching this show on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. Give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. Yes, I'm back. It's been a couple weeks since I released a new episode, and today's show is a little different, but maybe one of the most important that I've ever done. Why? Really, because over the last 5 weeks, I've been on a journey of healing, of physical and mental challenge, a lot of patience, and some rediscovery. And I want to share some of the incredible lessons that I've learned along the way with you. You may or not know, I had a pretty major setback in my back area. I actually ended up having multiple disc issues and an extrusion at my L3, L4, for those that know what that is, that actually compressed a nerve and literally made it so that I couldn't stand really for any long period. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sleep without pain. I went from literally top tier Ironman athlete training 15 to 20 hours a week to someone who couldn't even put on socks without pain, just excruciating pain shooting down the front of my leg. And I got to be honest, it has been humbling. It was humbling. It is humbling. And in some ways it shook me, right? And in that experience, I found a deeper level of discipline, resilience, and focus that really than I've ever tapped into before, because that's what it takes, right? When you hit these situations, you can either, you know, crawl in a hole and just, say that's it, or you can go 150% at it and fix it, right? And that's really what I want to talk about today, because the lessons I've learned in healing my body really translate perfectly to building a business, growing a team, leading in life. So let's dive in to some of these lessons, right? So the first one is really appreciating the basics, right? You don't realize how much that you take for granted until you can't do it, right? Something as simple as walking, standing in the kitchen, laying flat in bed without pain. These things were suddenly luxuries to me. I mean, literally cooking my breakfast of eggs in the morning was so painful. I had to like lean on the counter or like lay on the floor while the eggs were cooking, right? Waiting for that to be done to keep the pain at bay. Right. And, you just don't think about those things until you have that happen in your life. And it made me realize how much we overlook things in our daily lives, especially as entrepreneurs, right? We focus on the big goals, the metrics, the outcomes, but we forget to really appreciate the basics. Things like a working laptop, a quiet space to think, the ability to send an email without pain, or simply having a team that shows up and works hard every single day. It reminded me that success starts by valuing the fundamentals. In business, this means honoring the basics, right? Clear communication, sound financials, serving the customer, creating real value. These aren't glamorous, but they're the foundation, right? Just like walking is. Uh, Lesson number two was the body and the business will heal if you give it what it needs. So let me tell you what I mean by that. When I was first injured, like anybody, I wanted a quick fix, right? But the magic stretch or the pill, the adjustment that would make it all go away. But healing something like this doesn't work like that. Neither does building a great business. It takes time. It takes consistency. It takes the right inputs. And so for me, that meant getting really serious and dialing in things like my physical therapy, prioritizing how I could sleep, stretching, decompression, strength training, anti-inflammatories, really the full routine, right? I got discipline. I tracked it. I worked every day, supplement routine, all of that stuff. And then nothing changed for weeks, it seemed on end. But I just kept going at it, like I said before, and just like all in, right? And just in the past week, right? Week 5 of this breakthrough. I jogged for the first time. I'm able to swim without pain now. I could bike, without any issue. I actually laid down and slept through a full night without waking in pain and tossing and turning all night. I was averaging maybe 3 to 4 hours of sleep, and I'm finally back to where I can get 6 or 7, right? And it really hit me, like all those weeks of that discipline and following the protocols and staying at it finally stacked up and made a difference. In business, it's the same. You may go for weeks, for months, even years, doing all the right things and not seeing the results that you want. You're making the sales calls, you're improving your product, you're building your brand, and nothing, right? And then suddenly, I think people that have been in the game long enough have seen this. In a matter of days, a short time, you get the huge client, a big partnership lands, or revenue spikes, or your team levels up. It all seems to just all of a sudden pay off, right? But it's not magic. It's that momentum built through daily discipline and trusting that process and staying true to the core things, right? The 80-20 rule, 20% drives 80% of the results in your business. That's just sticking at that 20%, 20%, 20%, right? And it does, it pays off. And on this show, I've talked about the long game forever. And this is kind of a microcosm of that, right? Lesson number 3 was the breakthrough often comes right after the breaking point. Over the last 4 weeks, I've had some really tough nights, like nights where I did not sleep. I mean, really at all. And there were days where I was frustrated beyond belief. I questioned everything. Like, was I doing the right things? Would I ever heal? Was I pushing too hard? Not enough? All of that. But I just kept at it, right? Following the protocols, stayed with it. I reminded myself of something that I do like to say from time to time, is that, the struggle is the reward in the end, right? If you can go through the struggle, the rewards are on their side. So you just gotta go through it. And sure enough, the week that I was closest to feeling completely defeated really was the week everything changed. And that's how life works. It's how entrepreneurship works, right? You feel like quitting right before the win. And, I think the lesson is you don't quit. You might be 1 week, 1 day, one decision away from that game changing breakthrough. So you never stop, you never quit, you never give in. Even if it's 2 steps forward, 1.9 back, you keep at it. Lesson number 4 is that resilience is built, it's not born, right? People have said to me, gosh, you're doing all this. We know, I know you're in pain like constantly and stuff, but you're still, you're at it every day in business. You're doing X, Y, and Z. The physical things you're doing are hurting like crazy and you're still going. You're very resilient. But I didn't feel resilient when I was literally crawling out of bed or, having, to stop any workout because I couldn't physically do it. I felt weak. I felt vulnerable. I felt human. But every time I showed up and I did the work that I could anyway, I built more strength. And every time I stretched when I didn't want to, every time I logged the exercise, every time I followed the routine, I was building that resilience, even if it didn't look like it. And it's the same for entrepreneurs. You build resilience the same way. You show up when it's hard. You stick to your systems. You review your KPIs. You have the tough conversations. You lead through uncertainty. And that's how you become ultimately unshakable. And that leads me to lesson number 5. And that's you are not your current condition. There was a moment laying flat on the floor with ice packs and pain pulsing down my leg where I thought, is this who I am now? A broken down former endurance athlete and entrepreneur. But I caught myself because really that wasn't the truth. That's just how I felt in the moment, my subconscious, right? That, was putting thoughts in my head that I didn't believe and it wasn't who I was. And I corrected it. And, I think the thing is to know is if you're in a tough spot right now, maybe your business isn't growing, maybe you've lost a key employee or a big deal that was going to be game changing, right? You got to remind yourself you're not your current condition. You are your vision. You are your actions. You are your future. And your current circumstances are just that. They're current. They can and will change. So, final thought for you is that these last 5 weeks have been tough in a lot of ways, but they've also been one of the greatest growth experiences of my life. And now as I get closer to returning to like training and in business at full strength, I do it with more clarity, with more gratitude, more discipline than ever. It's really ignited even a bigger fire in me, right? So whether you're facing right now a physical, mental, business, personal, whatever it is that you're facing right now, know this. The comeback is always stronger than the setback. If you're willing to do the work, right, it's always, always stronger than the setback. And the work will give you the success, right? So you have to keep going. You have to trust the process. You have to focus on the fundamentals and never forget how far you've already come. Misfits, I thank you for sticking with me during this time. It's, it probably didn't look like it so much, but it was hard to even do an episode. It was hard to get to this point to do an episode. So, I'm getting back to normal. I'll be back with more regular interviews, new episodes every single week. And if you've enjoyed this message or know someone that needs to hear it, I heard you share it with them. And if you haven't yet, like I said before, make sure you subscribe, right? Never miss a show. Until next time, here's to you, your healing, your growth, and your Misfit journey.